Everybody, this is Scott from Lawrence Hypnotherapy, and today I'm joined with a fantastic guest, someone who I love this line of work because especially now, especially because of recent events, this is so important and people need it. Addiction is something that can really, it affects people in a huge way, and being able to help people with addiction is just such a magical thing to be able to see kind of like a light at the other side. So Luke Michael Howard from Hypnosis is a rapid addiction specialist. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here, Scott. How are you?
Very good. So you were saying that you're still in lockdown at the moment because we're out. So we experienced it, and yes, it was not fun. But you were saying like you're still in there.
Yeah, you guys in Australia had the right strategy on how to deal with this and get your country back up to speed. But here in Toronto, statistically, we've been under lockdown for 6 months now. The highest form of lockdown, meaning no restaurants, no hanging out in patios. The shops are closed, only curbside pickup now. Gyms are still closed. Essentially, we're pretty much sequestered at home. It's been like that for about a year. We had a month or two in the middle where we could go to patio bars and restaurants, what have you. That lasted for about 6 weeks or 2 months. All the cases went up. So since November, complete lockdown. So yeah, we're not doing it. Toronto's having a tough time. Ontario specifically is having a tough time with the lockdown right now. We probably didn't deal with it the best way initially.
Yeah. Is there like a strategy at the moment that they seem to be using? I mean, like obviously the lockdown, but does it seem to be bringing the numbers down?
No. You know, the interesting thing is, even when they enforce the highest level of lockdown, essentially you can't really leave your home unless you're getting shopping or for your daily walk or your daily run. They still want it. They still want continues to go up. Cases still continue to go up, and I think one of the reasons is people are just sick and tired of it now. You know, they're promised, I will review it in about 6 weeks. We'll review it in a month, and it's like our cases are going up. How can we put more restrictions on you? And I think it's certain people continue to have parties in their homes, you know, with more than 6 people and stuff like that. And, you know, it is what it is, but it don't look like there's any light at the end of the tunnel at this particular moment. On May 20th, we review it again. But yeah, it's, who knows, man. Yeah, we're pretty much in it. We're stuck in it right now.
Because that was like one of the hardest parts is like not knowing, where they basically say that like, you know, in 2 weeks, we're going to look at, you know, easing restrictions. And then in 2 weeks, then they say, okay, well, we're going to add another 6 weeks to it. And then in 6 weeks, you're like, all right, I just need to get through 6 weeks. It can be really tough. And then, you know, for people's jobs, for people's sanity, for people's, you know, ability to socialize. And obviously this would have a huge effect on addiction as well.
For sure, yeah. And an interesting thing is, you know, the addictions I specialize in are helping clients overcome alcohol, helping clients stop using cocaine, stop gambling, sex addictions, sugar addictions, nicotine addictions. And one of the things that I realized, or I had the foresight, I guess, is I just guessed that a year of lockdown, most people would end up gaining weight. And I think statistically, a lot of people in Canada have gained weight, you know, because they've got essentially more times their structure on their hands. And I'm like, you know, you see your work colleagues and a year later, they've gained the COVID 7 pounds or the COVID 14. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm a mismatch, all right? I'm a rebel. If everyone's going to the left, I am going to go to the right, you know? So I'm like, how about I come back? And when Canada does finally open up Ontario, why don't I just be the leanest I've ever been? So, yeah, I use this time to do a lot of fasting, deal with like, I used to have like a really big sugar addiction. I used to be very fat. I've used this time to deal with that as well, work on my fasting and stuff. So my goal is, when it does open up again, you know, I can be in the best shape I've been in since I was 20.
Perfect. I love it. So what got you into addiction therapy?
So I've been a hypnotist now. I call myself a hypnotist because it's the easiest box for the common man or woman to understand where I'm coming from. But really, I'm a change worker, an agent of change. So I find the best tools from the best change technologies, psychology, hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming or what have you. And I ethically still, well, I pay them a lot of money actually to go and do these courses and learn those skills to find people that are smarter than me and have more elegant ways of dealing with this, so I can add that to my tool chest. So I was dealing with anything. When I first got into hypnosis, how I'd make a living was I was only working with smokers. I was only working with smokers for one session. We're talking like 22 years ago, and I built a pretty decent business doing that. Because when I learned hypnosis, all my teachers, remember, I'm an 18, 19-year-old punk kid. Everyone else on my neuro-linguistic programming, my NLP, my hypnosis courses are in their 40s, are in their 50s. They're firmly established, have successful careers doing something else, have families, have houses. Essentially, I don't even have a home at this point, so I'm just a young punk kid. And everyone would be like, don't deal with any of the heavy stuff. Leave that to the psychologist. Leave that to the psychiatrist. You know, as hypnotists, let's just work on simple things like nicotine addiction, anxiety, just making people feel good with some nice words. But leave all the heavy trauma, addictions, heroin, crystal meth, leave that to the experts. So I thought, hey, fuck that. I want to work with that shit. And what I realized was people, other hypnotists would refer to me, even hypnotists that I'd never heard of before. And I didn't notice the pattern. And then my girlfriend said to me one day, all these other hypnotists are referring hard case clients to you, clients that they for whatever reason, do not believe that they can help. And they would be a lot of clients that had addiction problems. They were way down the tunnel, way down into the matrix of heroin addiction, cocaine addiction, alcohol addiction. And for whatever reason, these other change workers, these other hypnotists had seen me talk, they'd watched some of my videos, and they're just like, I don't know, I get a feeling that I need to send this person to you. And it was people with heavy addictions. And I'm like, and I didn't realize it, but my girlfriend noticed it and pointed it out. And I'm like, that's interesting. You know what's really crazy? Is I'm straight edge, which means my whole life, I probably drank less than 5 times in my life before the age of 20. I just didn't really like alcohol. Never done any heavy drugs. I one time before the age of 20 smoked a Cuban cigar. So I lived this life of, I just didn't want to do drugs. I didn't want to gamble. It's what straight edge is, if people don't understand. It's a movement. It comes from punk. That's why my name is Hypnopunk on the street. And it comes from a movement from punk, whereas in the early to mid 90s, youths, adolescents would go to punk concerts. They'd be allowed, they'd be admitted to come in. But if they were accidentally served liquor, the establishment would be closed down and heavily fined. So these people had a genius way of dealing with it, that they would draw, I don't know if you can see it, an X on the back of their hand. So if these youths, if these underage adolescents went up to the bar and being a bit sneaky to try and get some alcohol there, they'd see the X and not serve them. So it then became a movement of how you can enjoy yourself, be fun, not be the typical square. You could go to punk concerts, you could enjoy it, you could be in the moment, but you didn't need to drink liquor. You didn't need to do heavy drugs. You didn't need to do light drugs. You could go to these places, you could enjoy it, but you could take all of the other auxiliary stuff out of it. And I didn't know anything about this, by the way. I'd just been living my life straight edge before I knew what straight edge was. We fast forward. Actually, I'll give you, before we fast forward, my dad is what we'd probably consider an alcoholic. And at the age of 13, he had 2 heart attacks, and he would chain smoke about 50 cigarettes a day. And I saw this, and I just made, and if people, whatever people do, whatever their drug is that they do, I don't really care, to be honest. I'm not here to judge them. If someone's doing a drug and that's what they want to do with their life and they're happy, more power to you. I only help people. I only come on the scene when someone puts their hand up and says, Luke, this drug is controlling me. It's destroying my life. Please help me to save myself. So that's kind of how I come in. So I see my dad, heart attack. I go into the hospital. I'm 13. My sister's 8. First time I'd ever been in a hospital, you know, other than being born, I guess. And I see my dad is connected to all these wires. and this machinery is going on, right? And he's not moving. And it appears from a distance he's not breathing. At that moment, no one tells me, but my unconscious says, your dad's dead. He's dead.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'm like, shit. So at that moment, unconsciously, I just like, you know, I'm just going to make a choice now as a 13-year-old. I don't want to go down this road. I don't want to go down this road. Luckily, he wasn't dead. He was just sleeping. He's still around now. He still drinks. He still smokes. And people are like, why can't you help your dad, Luke? Because he doesn't want my help. He's had triple bypass surgery, 3 strokes, 2 heart attacks. He's still chain smoking. Love him. But what I had to realize is at an early age, I desperately wanted to help my dad. He didn't want my help. He didn't want to stop. So I just had to still continue to love him, but let him do what he needed to do, because I realized he didn't want to change. I couldn't make him change. And if I was still trying to use covert hypnosis to try and make him change and he didn't, I would just resent him. So I had to kind of make a pact with myself to just love my dad, let him make his mistakes, let him do what he needs to do. And if he ever needs my help, I'm here. But it was tough. It was tough to make that decision. But I had to do it, you know, in order for my own sanity going forward. But he's still alive. He's in his mid-70s now, and he's still smoking, and he's still doing his alcohol. He doesn't want to change, and you know, I love him. He's going to live his life the way he wants to live his life. He's not ready, and he never will be, unfortunately, to change.
I hear you. Like, I absolutely hear you. Like, I've got like 2 of my best friends, like, were the ones that I would drink and smoke with. And like, my last cigarette was about 11 years ago.
Okay.
So then after I quit smoking, I'd go back to see them. And one of them, for 11 years, he's been saying like, you've got to help me get off cigarettes, but I'm not ready yet. And then it was something like, you know, the grand final is on soon, so there's no point in quitting now. And I've gone, oh, is this the last year that football's going to be around? Because, you know, there'll be a grand final next year and the year after that, the year after that. But it's like that agreements versus expectations, that you can basically ask somebody to live up to an agreement, but you can't really ask them to live up to an expectation, because if it wasn't agreed upon, because it's just like almost like something that we want it for the other person. But because of free will, it's like it's a lot easier to help a person who actually puts their hand up and asks for help.
Absolutely. So oftentimes I'll get a very well-meaning partner, a husband, a wife, a mother, a father, a child calling up for their partner, their parent, their sibling, their friend. And these are very well-meaning people. They really desperately want to help their loved one. And they're doing what they think's right. And they call me up and they say, Luke, I want you to work with my brother, my husband, my mum, whoever's going through the addiction at that moment. I say, well, first of all, thank you so much for being a great friend, a great parent, a great sibling, a great husband, a great wife, you know, for wanting to help them. Thank you so much for doing that. But you have to understand that my first question is, why are they not calling me? Why are you calling me? And they're like, well, I just thought they asked me to do some of the research, or they don't know about it, but I want to find out how much you charge, and just calling around. And I say, all right, so why are you calling me and not them?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the first red flag. I get they're well-meaning people. God bless them, said the atheist. But that person needs to put their hand up and say, Luke, I need your help. And I say respectfully, it's not much point in you and I talking, because you're not the one who needs help. So please do pass my details on to the person who's suffering. And when they're ready, I'll totally be here, ready to help them if they're ready. But they've got to put their hand up, and they've got to take that first step. Once they take that first step, then we're on the right tracks to recovery once and for all. But right now, we're not even on the first step. We're on -2, and you're doing all the work, and they're not calling me, which tells me exactly where you are, or exactly where they are right now, which is probably not ready to change and save their life.
Absolutely. So what would you say is, when you help somebody to get off an addiction, what happens? What's the path?
The path of the client, or the path that I take with them?
Yeah, like what's the path that you take with them?
Okay, so first of all, like people look at me, and they look different from most other hypnotists. And it's a weird thing. Again, my girlfriend, very smart, I would do expos, and people would come up to me, and I would do street hypnosis as a way to demo the power of hypnosis, because just watching somebody do a session, other than for us hypnotists or change workers, for anyone else watching a typical therapeutic hypnotic session, it's frigging boring to watch. But if I stick someone's hand to a table at an expo, holy shit, that's amazing. But then I'll build, like, if I can stick your hand to that couch, maybe I can help you to stick that new path of recovery in your mind right now, which would be stuck, glued, locked in place, so you know that you can do it. But anyway, so yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? As hypnotists, hypnotic phenomenon, magnetic fingers, magnetic hand, a stick, heavy light balloon, they're all great, but they mean nothing to our clients other than a little cheap parlor trick. But if we navigate it and we direct that piece of phenomenon we're showing them to, you see how your fingers are coming together now automatically by themselves. Well, the kind of work that we're going to do today is going to help you to bring yourself closer to that path that you want without consciously making it happen. Whatever the phenomenon is that we do, tie it in specifically to the client, and then suddenly, like, oh, that finger stick, that hand stick, that magnetic fingers, which for us is easy to do with clients, becomes a huge part of the work we're going to do, because you've given them a little bit of the magic, but behind it, you've backed it up with, well, if you can stick your fingers, you can stick your hand, you can stick your eyes, you can forget your name that you've had your whole life, this identity you've had your whole life. Maybe you can forget that you have an addiction. Maybe you can forget about using coke, about using alcohol, about using heroin. If you can forget your name that you've had forever, maybe you can forget that you ever had this problem and leave it behind in the past. But as I go off in a tangent, as I often do, my girlfriend would say, you've got this ability. I'm like, what? She goes, people come up to you, and I don't know what it is. It's the way that you look. It's the way that you speak. It's this raw honesty you come. But they start to divulge their deepest secrets to you immediately. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm in the role of the hypnotist at the expo, and they come by. She's like, no, that's not it. It's not it. These people come up to you. It's something else, and they just feel that they're not being judged by you. They feel that, you know, I don't know if it's my energy, probably the way that I look, but when I've surveyed people, yeah, I just don't feel judged by you. Because what everyone says to me, whatever my client's problem is, hey, I've been hiring escorts every night for the last 5 years and cheating on my wife. I've heard it all before. I'm a serial killer. I've heard it all before. You're not going to shock me. It's just another problem. And I think a lot of hypnotists, when I asked him, hey, why are you referring the cocaine addict, the alcoholic, the gambler, the sex addict, why are you referring them to me? You know, you've been doing this a long time. I'm sure you have the skills. And it was always a lack of confidence. Oh, I'm safe in this area. I'm safe in helping people quit smoking. I'm safe in the area of dealing with anxiety. But this other stuff is really heavy. And if I mess this up, you know, I'm fucked. For me, it's just another problem. It's just another problem. It's just a certain way someone's using their neurology, consciously or unconsciously, that's creating suffering. It's no bit the heroin addict for me is no different from the person who gets a bit shy talking to someone of the opposite sex or someone of the same sex that they're attracted to. For me, it's the same level of problem. It's no bigger or scary. It's just like, all right, you're a heroin addict. You've flatlined in the emergency room 3 times. Want to get rid of that shit and never have it happen again? Sure. Yeah. It's the same stuff for me. It's not big. It's not scary. It's like, let's just work through it. I've got the tools to help you, to help yourself to get rid of this. Are you ready?
Like I was fairly similar. Like I, to begin with, only saw smokers. And what kind of made me branch out wasn't so much that I chose to, but like people would say, like, you know, you've helped me with one thing and I trust you. Can you help me with this next one? And it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I think, like, as you try to refer someone on, they will actually say, like, no, I want you to help me. Because, like, you know, they've got that trust relationship happening. And then, like, sure. Yeah, you find that, like, if you bring your professional skill set to the table, you can help them. because it almost like doesn't matter which drug it is. It's the person that you're helping.
Yeah, yeah, and I think change workers, we overcomplicate it. We're like, oh well, heroin is really big, crystal meth is really big. It's like no, forget about treating the symptom. Using the drug over gambling, over sex, over addicted to social media, cocaine, whatever it is, that's just the band-aid on the bullet wound. And most people make the mistake of, oh, I'm going to stop you, AA. I'm going to stop you from drinking. I'm going to stop you from using your drug, NA, Narcotics Anonymous. I don't look at it like that. I look at, there's a structure that they're probably not aware of trauma that's accumulated over time. Maybe they're consciously aware of it, maybe they're not. Once that's healed, once that underlying negative emotions, trauma, for want of a better word, is healed, forgiveness for themselves or the situation or another person that may have been involved, once that work's done at a deep level, oftentimes I don't even need to directly address the drug, because it collapses when underneath it has been cleaned up. The drug is just a symptom of another problem that's gone by unnoticed, unrectified, unreleased, unresolved. Once that's resolved, oftentimes people are like, but we didn't talk about my alcohol or my drugs. I'm like, but are you still using? No, I just stopped. Well, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, because there's the habit side, but there's also the human needs and the trauma. And so when the trauma is resolved and when the human needs are met, the habit's a lot easier to fix.
Yeah.
Like something I like to talk about with people is that, let's say like with the car, like when the indicator and the wipers, sometimes they hop into a different car and the indicator and the wiper are on opposite sides. And so maybe like once or twice, like, it rains and they put their indicator on, or perhaps like, they wipe the windscreen around a corner. And that's a habit, but it's not necessarily a painful habit. Like once or twice they figure it out and it's fine. It seems like that the habits that have this kind of like either trauma or unmet emotional needs, like where people are using the drug, like whether it's like, cigarettes or alcohol or sugar or cocaine or marijuana or any of those things, because like they're either trying to jumpstart their day and they don't have the energy without the drug, so they're leaning on it for that, or they need to take breaks and they feel like they need to break things up to sort of like create a barrier, like whether it's a smoke break or whether it's a food break or whether it's like, to break up their life from the routine. Or like perhaps like if it's, human connection, like where they actually, like we were talking about that as to like, we're a community, like we're an ecosystem, not just individuals. Or perhaps like even when people, like there was a post you did recently that I really liked, that it's something like, that the addiction isn't the meaning of life, but it makes the question go away.
Yeah.
What was the particular one? How did it go?
If I grab my phone, I can tell you. It might take me a moment. It was something along the lines of. Okay, I'm going to find it verbatim to you. It's not that one. All right, it's not that one. Okay, drugs and alcohol are not the answer. They just make you forget the question.
Yes.
That one, right?
Perfect. Because like the way I see that is, it could be about like, what's the meaning of life, or it could be what'll make me happier. It could be, I've finished work. Now, what do I feel like doing tonight to experience some enjoyment? And it literally does make them forget the question. It's like with a cigarette. It's kind of like when people, like in the morning, they might be like to-do list orientated because they have to get their stuff done. But at night, they tend to be a little bit more philosophical, and they're like, my birthday's coming up and the big zero at the end of the age, the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever that is. Or do I have enough money compared to everyone else? Am I loved enough compared to everyone else? Am I anything else compared to anybody else? And then the cigarette or the alcohol or the cigar or marijuana, wherever it is, like they get that and they're going like, oh, okay. And it's then almost like all of those questions that are still not answered, it does seem to kind of make those questions go away, because like they're starting to, all they want is to feel happy. Like that the question wasn't for them, like wasn't so much to be answered. The question was just a source of pain by going, am I loved enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I rich enough? Am I successful enough? Am I grown up enough compared to like what people want? And the drug really does seem to kind of like just soothe the pain of that question.
One of the things that I teach my clients, I didn't make this up, it's called horribilizing. So whatever is the emotion that they don't want to face, for me, for many years, I was very good at anger, feeling anger, very good at anxiety, feeling anxiety, not so good at sitting in a space of sadness. And oftentimes, my experience, probably yours as well, when people have those two emotions, they live on those two emotions, underneath them, there's an awful lot of sadness that they're avoiding. It's very hard for me to sit in that sadness and do nothing about it. Not victimize it, not label it, not that turn that 5 minutes into 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months for you, 5 years. But I teach my clients that one emotion that they were trying to run from, again, in my case, it was sadness. Every day you would feed the monster. You would feed the monster a little bit. So an example is if they were really, they had sadness that they were trying to process, they'd get up in the morning. They'd go to a certain part in their house that they wouldn't spend most of their time there. They set their timer for 5 minutes. And for 5 minutes twice a day, could be any time. Mine was in the morning, in the evening. They just have to feel the sadness or whatever the emotion is. Not label it, but feel it. Feel it as strong as you can, even to a point where it's horrible. But when that 5 minutes is up, you shake it off, you leave that area of your house, wherever you're doing it, where you've anchored it to, and you go on with the rest of your day. And what would happen over a few days, might be 2 days, 3 days, for a week, the sadness would come up at another point in the day, to which I'd say, and I taught my clients, if the sadness comes up, or whatever that emotion is you're processing at any time other than your horribilizing time in the morning or the evening, 5 and 5 minutes, you just say, hey, now's not the time. But at 10 o'clock tonight, you're going to have your 5 minutes to come, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to feel you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to push you down. I'm not going to use some hocus pocus to make you disappear. I'm going to feel you as rawly as possible. So when I first started to do this, I might only be able to get sadness maybe 1 minute of that 5 minutes, because I was still But as I got deeper and deeper, it was not pleasant, but the more I fed that monster while it was small, it would come up another point of the day, and it would generalize. I would build up that reputation, that trust with my unconscious. All right, we're going to take the sadness away now, because you've showed me, the unconscious mind speaking, that you're going to sit down and feel me twice a day. So it's every day at 10 a.m., 10 p.m. All right, I'll come back at 10 p.m. But if you don't sit down and feel me, I'm going to fill up your day with that unpleasant emotion. But because you've showed me, and it was just a way of dissolving it, instead of running away, instead of using a drug, food, another form of drug, or anything, sex, internet, social media, just sitting there and feeling it. And of all the years, of all the techniques that I've learned, there was almost nothing more powerful than just sitting there, not victimizing, and just feeling fully the sensation, not necessarily the label. And then when I allowed myself to feel it, it just went. And it would come back smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's a technique I teach my clients to do. And it works really, really well with them. But to begin with, it's a bit difficult for them to sit in that space and just feel it. But the key is set the timer for 5 minutes on your phone. As soon as that time is up, get the hell out of there, shake it off, change your physiology, change that area of the room or the house or wherever you were that you're anchoring it to, that particular area, go somewhere else, and only go to that area when you're horribilizing, processing those negative emotions.
I love that. Like, have you seen that movie called Inside Out?
No, my girlfriend keeps telling me to watch it. I do have the figurines for it, and I know the concept of the movies, so I'll bring them out for children or for my adult clients, of the sadness, taking the space, the anger taking the space, the anxiety being in the ego spot of the brain, and only one being in control at any particular time. But I use it as a metaphor with my clients. I still need to watch it though.
Like, what I loved about, like, Pixar seems to get the range of emotions, to know that, like, like when first joy was the only emotion, and it's great because feeling joy is really good, and there's no one to, that should be saying don't feel joy. But like when it came time for the sadness, it's like that there was some negative consequences for not actually making space for it. And also they don't want to get stuck in sadness either. But it's like that if they can stop and feel it and sort of stop and lean into it, it's like it's an educator. Let's say, like, if there's a box and this box is made of negative emotion, and so then people like sort of imagine, like, put it in a wheelbarrow, push it up a hill, and then throw it off the cliff. But part of the subconscious kind of says like, well, I don't want to give it permission to go off the cliff for some reason. Like I'm still attached to it. And then they say, well, what if like we could open the box and say, is there anything in it that you need? So then maybe they spend 5 minutes with that box and they go like, oh, well, on the inside, there was actually all these lessons about like, well, the next time you're in situation XYZ, put these protective steps in place. Or the next time that there's like a winter, get a blanket. The next time that you're in public, do these steps or whatever it is. So there was like actual information in that negative emotion about how to be more safe in the future or how to be happier in the future. And if they just throw it off a cliff, it's like they miss out on the whole thing. But if they just hold on to the negative emotion, it's like then they're just sort of stuck in it. But when they actually stop and actually lean into the negative emotion in an attempt to unpack it and feel it, they get like not label, but kind of just to experience it, see what it teaches them. And at that point, like then they can throw it off a cliff. And there might be more negative, or what we could say like, sad boxes or anger boxes later. But that particular one was like happy to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I always frame my hypnosis with people's experience, because oftentimes people come to me and they'll be like, Luke, I was hypnotized. It didn't work. It didn't work for me. To which I respond, it didn't work or you didn't work for it. And they stop, and 100% of the time they'll be like, yeah, I didn't work for it. And I'm like, it's a bit like hiring a trainer or a nutritionist because you want to get in shape. And they give you all these great exercises, this great nutrition plan that works. And then a month later, you meet for your next session with your trainer, your nutritionist, and you haven't gained any weight. Sorry, you haven't lost any weight. You haven't got better in shape. Would you be angry with your trainer or nutritionist? Or would you be like, it didn't work because I didn't go to the gym. I didn't run. I didn't follow the program. I didn't follow nutrition. Yeah. And it frames them up, because oftentimes they think, oh, the hypnotist is going to pull out a magic wand. I'm like, no, I'm not here to save you. I'm going to help you to save yourself. I'm just a bit like your Google Maps in your car. Still your car, you're still driving to the destination. I'm just going to help you get to where you want to go, sobriety, healthy, being recovered, feeling amazing, without you having to hit rush hour traffic, without you having to hit any dead-end streets, without your car going off of a cliff. I'm going to safely guide you there, but make no mistake about it. Your hands are on the steering wheel, your foot's on the accelerator, you're in control. I'm just going to make it easier for you. Yeah. But a lot of people will say, oh, well, yeah, it was just like the guy was just talking to me. And like we call it, almost relaxnosis. And I'm like, well, have you seen any videos of me? They're like, no. I'm like, well, you should watch the videos of me. Because for me, it's all about the experience. It's about giving them the experience of hypnosis so they feel something magical has happened. I'm always telling my clients, hypnosis is not magic, but it can be magical. Meaning the experience of giving people a stuck hand in hypnosis, forgetting their name, can tie into forgetting they had an addiction, being stuck to your resolutions of recovery, but also giving people, when someone sits in their emotion but doesn't necessarily identify the label of sadness, anger, anxiety, but just feeling the semantic experience of, oh, sadness. Where do you feel the sadness in your body? I feel it on my throat. Just notice whatever you notice, and I'll ask you how you're feeling about 5 to 10 seconds from now. Just focus on the sensation, not the emotion. And interestingly, as it happens, it starts to become an experience, experiential learning. We've taken away the label of, oh, this is sadness, this is bad, this is anger. Now it's just a sensation on the body. All right, yeah, it's a sensation. It's quite a tight sensation. All right, just notice what happens. I'll check in with you in about 10 seconds. Fast forward 10 seconds. What do you notice now? Oh, it's a lot warmer now. Oh, is that more pleasant or more or less pleasant? Oh, it's more pleasant. I'll check in with you. And by giving them the experiential learning of taking away the label and the psychobabble and just focusing on whatever the sensation is, it's again giving them the experience of a lot of time they're not used to it. It's like, here's some advice I'm going to give for your logical, conscious mind of why addiction's bad and statistics. If that shit worked, nobody would be addicted to anything. It's about giving them experiences to dissolve those negative or unresourceful emotions and create, like that movie, Inside Out, letting joy, letting happiness be in the ego spot of the brain, and to experience more of those feelings, but not just intellectually experience them, but in their body. Because it's what drugs do for a lot of people, right? Is it gets them out of their head and it gets them into their body, feeling different type of sensations in it. And the reason most people do drugs on some level is many drugs, when they're doing them, they feel good. to the person.
Yeah.
So it's like giving them an experience of allowing them to feel good, but never having to do cocaine again, never having to do heroin again, never having to gamble again, and what have you. So they're in control.
It's like that someone could have read 100 books on how to take a shower and not smell any better until they actually take that shower.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. So if people would like to see your videos, would like to get in contact with you, where can we go?
Beautiful. So you can come on Facebook, Luke Michael Howard, and you can friend me on here. You can go on Facebook and put in Hypnosis. That's Luke, like me, Luke Nosis. Got over 1,000 videos on there. Or you can just come to my website, lukenosis.com. Also on the Instagram and on Twitter, Hypnosis. If you search those, even my podcast is on there where you listen to your podcasts. But Hypnosis, put it into your search engine, into your Google machine, and you can find me on any one of those different levels or platforms.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. And I'll make sure that there's a link under this video. So if there was like one of those links, which one would you prefer to be under this video?
Good question. I'll probably give you my website. That would probably be the hub of everything, either my website or my YouTube.
Yep. So the
Hypnosis.com or YouTube/Hypnosis, I think.
Perfect. All right, guys, click on the link and check out more of these videos because this is really fascinating stuff and very timely because of just how the world is right now. That I think that people are really trying to figure themselves out right now and they're feeling a whole lot of things. And sometimes it can seem like the addictions answer the question, but they just seem to make the question go away.
Or to quote one of my favorite wrestlers, Roddy Piper, just when you had the answers, I changed the question.
I like that. It's a good one to leave it on. All right, guys, click the button and check out more of these videos.
Always believe.